Can we all come to grips and understand that addictions is something everybody needs to deal with and come to their own self-evaluation on, and that really every one of us has some type of an addiction? Let's talk about that. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Ann Homick from Homick Advanced Chiropractic, and this is Brain Snob episode 34. I want everyone to be a brain snob. It is not an insult. Being a brain snob is a high compliment. It means you know how the brain works, so you can really harness your brain for amazing life experiences, because your brain makes your body and you make your life. After all, a burdened brain is a disease magnet as well as lost talent, but a performing brain can change the world. So when you come to my office, you're going to pick up your copy of the BFA template and the BFA roadmap for the healing journey. What is BFA? BFA is Brain First Always. It's a protocol that I incorporate into chiropractic so you get the best benefits of your chiropractic for brain training and deliberate brain performance. So when I say the word addiction, what comes to mind? Well, right now we've got a lot of opiate issues and lawsuits because people who created the opiates now should they should compensate everybody for all the trouble they caused. Alcohol addiction is a big problem as well. There's AA groups, there's centers for addiction and recovery. People get addicted to gambling, people get addicted to food, people get addicted to sex, people get addicted to shopping, things like that. So addiction, it doesn't really matter. That's what they tell us. It doesn't really matter what your material of the addiction is, but it's in the same spot of the brain. There's a dopamine issue where you need to compensate for a weakened brain reward cascade, and you seek things outside of you in order to build that back up within the brain, and that is the brain reward cascade. Studies have shown that chiropractic care for people in addiction treatment, they actually do better when they have chiropractic every day of their stay, and they have less need for going to the nurse's station. They have better depression scores, and I can put that study on my website somewhere and show that to you because it's quite interesting. And the basis of that is you have brain cells all the way down in your spinal cord, every root, at every vertebra, and you specifically have in that dorsal portion, dorsal root of your spinal cord is limbic system. There are limbic system cells everywhere, head to tail, so to speak, of your spinal cord. And that is a neat discovery. It's a semi-recent discovery. So when I talk about brain, I'm talking about your spine because it houses your spinal cord and your brain and your skull. That is the master system, your nervous system, and that's why we start there. Think about your habits, because we all want to have good habits. We want to practice good behaviors that improve our health, and a habit is something we all desire to have. We want to be known for our good habits and the things that we do that are considered positive and admirable and disciplined. If you have self-discipline, that means you've got great habits. And discipline is actually, if you look up the verb discipline, to discipline, you're training yourself to do something in a controlled and habitual way. So we have the ability to control how we perceive the world and play with the world, and how to communicate and participate in the world. What's my point here? I'm going on and on and on here about addiction. You say the word addiction and everybody goes, oh my gosh, there's such a stigma. Get me away from that. People don't want to talk about their own personal issues, and they don't want to say I have an addiction, and they don't want to have a 30-day program where they have to go every day and admit that they have an addiction. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do. So I wanted to talk about that middle ground. How can we take away the stigma and help people regain their health? Because it's in the brain. And if we help the brain, we can help all aspects of our lives. And I'm talking about well-ingrained patterns. Let's give that the neutral definition. If you have a well-ingrained pattern in your brain, it is a habit or it is an addiction. It just depends on how you look at it and if you're actually getting a reward from it, a positive reward, or you're getting a negative reward that may be making your life more at risk of poor health. And so when I'm thinking about drug addiction, then people, their health is already deteriorating because they've had that well-ingrained pattern for so long that they are seeking these drugs over and over, and they're not getting the same response, so they need more, and they need to repeat this over and over again because it is a well-ingrained pattern in the brain. Just as your getting up in the morning and going out and taking a jog is a well-ingrained pattern, but nobody looks down on that. Well, most people don't. If you go out and exercise, people admire you for that. You get up every morning and walk your dog. Well, it's required. It's a necessity, but it's a habit, and you get positive vibes for that as well because you're doing something constructive and worthwhile. Well-ingrained patterns, they're there, but the way we look at them matters. And if we are unhappy with our well-ingrained patterns and we feel like it's bringing our life down, it's negative, it's not helpful, and it's affecting our health, then we need to do something about it. We have to get beyond the depression and the fear and the anxiety and say, let's make a change and change this well-ingrained pattern. Let's extinguish it and let's replace it with something that is more productive for me and more healthy for me. So addiction and habit, they have the same idea, a well-ingrained pattern in the brain. One is useful and the other one is considered destructive. So I am in the middle of trying to retrain myself in a controlled and habitual way with my diet. I can share that with you. It's not an emergency situation where I need professional help, but I'm noticing that I'm not quite as specific with my ketogenic diet, and I talk about it quite often because I find a lot of pleasure from it. And it is a discipline, but it's a discipline that turned into preference. I have a preference to eat things that make me feel good and not make me feel logy and bloated and exhausted and hating myself. I have chosen to say goodbye to a lot of the standard American foods that we all have grown up with. So it's been a cool change. A lot of people don't understand it. They look at me funny, and that's okay because I'm just going through my own experience, and I have to tweak it every once in a while, and I'm tweaking it this week because I do have quite an attraction to these keto fancy packaged foods that are obviously processed, and I'm trying to cut back on that, and I need to replace it with foods that are more nutritious. And also, I'm trying to get away from plant foods. That sounds utterly crazy when you think about it. Our society is really talking plant-based. Every conversation is you should be plant-based and eating less meat. I've decided I am going to increase my meat consumption because I'm not feeling quite right lately. And I think it's because there's not enough nutrition in our soil. So our plants are deprived, as well as the meat that eats the plants. They are deprived, and I've decided to take a little time for a mini experiment. You've heard of the carnivore diet, and a lot of people who've had autoimmune issues really are drawn to it and surprised by how well they feel. So there's a growing group of carnivore, zero-carb people, and it's a great way to heal brain disorders, brain dysfunction, loss of energy, brain fog, lack of concentration, lack of enthusiasm about living your life on planet Earth. And the carnivore diet has helped a lot of people. So I'm reading their personal stories, looking at some of the scientific literature that's already out there, and there's some catching up that needs to be done. So long story short, I haven't been feeling totally satisfied with the ketogenic direction I'm in right now. And a lot of it has to do with I'm eating a lot of those packaged keto snacks. And they look good when you type it into your macro app, but I'm still not happy. And I still feel hungry. I don't have the blood sugar drops, but I still feel hungry. And that kind of takes up space in my brain when I could be doing other things. So I said to myself, let's try the carnivore way. And specifically, I've switched to grass-fed ground beef and trying to eat it every day, and turns out I'm eating quite a lot, but it's working and I feel pretty good. I was eating 2 salads a day, and I decided I should cut back to only 1 salad, and the last couple of days I haven't had any salad. I don't know, tonight, dinner hasn't come yet, I don't know what I'm gonna do for dinner tonight, but the interesting thing is we know that something grass-fed and organic has the best nutrients out there. And when you eat a lot of plant foods, you still feel empty and you're not satiated because there's such a depletion in the soil that you're only going to get in your body what's actually in the ground. Same thing with the animals that we eat, because they're eating the plants that are also dealing with depleted soil. So we're living on depleted soil, trying to figure out what is going on. How can we feel better? So that's my mini experiment, and I've noticed it's all ice. I do not find myself going to the aisle at Wegmans with all these funky snacks and these keto packaging fancy foods, and I don't miss them. I don't miss them, where I would have to stock up and keep them handy and have enough for the weekend, have enough every day at work, and that's quite a nice feeling. So I'm doing this tweaking and changing it up a little bit. We all need to do that every once in a while. If you're interested in tweaking your diet and looking at where you can make some changes and in order to feel better, let me know, because this is the doorway I call feed the brain. We have to move the brain, feed the brain, and talk to the brain. And part of feeding the brain is the ketogenic diet. I like it a lot, and there's just a lot of good about it, mostly because the standard American diet has just a lot of chemicals, a lot of packaging, a lot of things for shelf life, and we have done a lot to our food that changes the nutrition value. And if we get back to the more whole food approach and we focus on fat as fuel, because that's what we did until recent, I would say in the 1900s, before the Chef Boyardee can of ravioli came on the shelf. If you've ever seen that episode on the History Channel about how all these foods came to be in around the 1950s and such, it's quite fascinating, and it really changed the way we perceive our food. I mean, I grew up on Hamburger Helper, and what else? Chef Boyardee, Campbell's. We grew up on all that stuff, and now the pendulum is swinging back to we can't do that. There's better ways to feed ourselves, and we're going back to the way our great-grandparents lived. And I can't even say the way my grandparents lived, because they were already in that era of canned foods, TV dinners. We used to say our grandparents were healthier than we are. No, I think back to my grandma and all the pills she had to take, and we had to put them in order and make sense of them and make a schedule so she wasn't missing something or overdoing something. And I decided I don't want to live that way. So even our grandparents weren't that healthy. I don't even know, maybe our great-grandparents weren't. Maybe our great-did I go back far enough? Maybe our ancestors that far back had it better than we had. They certainly had good soil, and they didn't have pesticides. They didn't have preservatives. They didn't have MSG in everything. So we have to make peace with our modern life, and that's part of Talk to Your Brain. How to make peace with the fight or flight response that life throws at us. We have to find that balance, and it does take a little effort and it does take work. We're not on autopilot anymore. We've got to be very serious about the way we look at our brain. And today I talked about addictions and habits and how important they are, and the good habits especially, and we can retrain ourselves to get back to the habits that are working, that are synchronistic with our bodies and with our lifestyle, the lifestyle that we desire. We desire health, and there's a lifestyle that goes along with that. So I'm long-winded today, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I want everybody to become a brain snob. And how do we dive in and get a better brain? We watch these videos and put comments at the bottom, and let's get a good discussion going. You can visit the blog, createpurpose.com. Absolutely watch the orientation video. And let's see, what did I miss? Hit the bell icon so you can get notifications of the next video. Subscribe, of course, and like the video. I want a thumbs up. Let's see those thumbs up growing. So become a brain snob so you can be a positive ripple effect in your community. Thanks for watching.